Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, welcome to the first episode of the Red Zone Room, joined by 440 Sports. It's the tailgate. So in this episode, our first episode, how you doing today?
Oh, it's a wonderful day. We got a podcast going, nothing better, just talking football.
Oh yeah, nothing better than talking football. Today we gonna talk about the Wild Card Weekend, one of the highly anticipated weeks of football. We got to talk about that, and then in the same episode, we are also going to give our divisional takes. So let's start it off in the AFC. I want to talk about last night's game, Steelers versus Browns. Just give me your thoughts.
Wow, I mean, I know everybody's reaction was just wow. Like, first of all, the snap, just momentum, the whole first quarter, picks from Big Ben, who was not good last night. Although that was a very, very weird stat line. 47 for 68, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, but 4 picks, which two of them, I guess, were tipped. But I still can't say he played too well. But the Browns with a 28-0 to start off the game, like, wow. And I'm sure, I think that was, honestly, I think that was the one game where everybody had the Steelers. Like, I think more people picked the Steelers than more people picked the Bills over the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was another thing. But so, like, obviously it's crazy to see the Browns winning a playoff game, beating their big daddy, I guess you could say. Um, but what makes it even more crazy is that Stefanski was out, Denzel Ward was out, Batonio was out, Conklin went down in the game. They had injuries. They were missing everyone. They practiced once this week, and really, I don't even know how much they practiced the last 2 weeks together. So to come out like that and start out 28-0, I can't believe that.
Yeah, I can't really say much better than myself. I think for the Steelers, a team that earlier in the season really relied on their run game between Benny Snell and James Conner. I mean, when you don't have a run game, just take any team, for example. When you don't have one, it's really hard to win in the NFL. And especially and it's hard to win against a team like Cleveland Browns, who we all know is a team that runs on momentum. This team they don't come from behind a whole lot. That's just not something they do very often. They're a very momentum run football team. So when you go up 7-0, just take the first play of the game. When you go up 7-0 on the first play on a botched snap, I mean, they carried that momentum throughout the entire game. And of course, the Steelers made it interesting in the end of the third quarter. They made it a 2-score game and they had the ball back too. But I mean, there was really no point during this game where someone said to themselves, oh my God, the Steelers are going to win this thing. Like, no, the Browns had control the entire time when they started off 14-0, 21-0, 28-0, obviously, like we saw. I will say, Ben Roethlisberger, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. But if you take away 2 of those 4 picks, I think we're looking at a much different football game. The Steelers might have actually won this thing. I will ask, though, do you think this is Ben Roethlisberger's last game?
For me, because I remember watching the first game of the year, the Monday night, Sunday night, it was Steelers Giants, and they talked to Big Ben after the game, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't really want to come back this year, but all my teammates convinced me, and I'm glad I did." So, I mean, I don't see him coming back next year, and I know we all saw him sitting there just taking it all in at the end of the game, which I think was he was sitting there. I saw he was crying a little bit, so I'm thinking I mean, obviously, it sucks to lose, but I think that's not a reaction of a guy that's going to be coming back to next year. I think I could see him coming back next year. I just really in their money situation, he'll be 38, 39. So
Mhm.
I don't see him coming back, but I knew that run game was going to come back. Their 32nd ranked run game. I knew that not. I didn't think they were going to lose this game, but at some point in the playoffs, that was going to hurt them because having your quarterback, your 37, 38-year-old quarterback, have to throw 68 passes.
Yeah,
That's not
68
what you
passes is
want.
just dumb. I mean, you're not going to win football games. I don't care if you have Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen throwing 68 balls. You're not going to win those games. And it's no knock on Ben Roethlisberger, even though I don't even think he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You're just not going to win those games. I will say, for everybody out there saying, oh yeah, the Steelers would be much better off without Big Ben. What are you talking about? I just don't understand that. How can you say to yourself, yeah, let's get rid of the guy who has like brought us to where we are? You can say the defense all you want, But without Big Ben, this team doesn't go 12-4, and I stand by that. Do you think that Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges is going to take this team to 12-4? Because those are your other two options. Oh, Sam Darnold or Deshaun Watson. Like, don't you realize you have to pay a ton of players at the end of the season? They have one of the most expiring contracts in the NFL this season. So you're not going to be able to sign everyone back. There are a lot of players in this team that are going to be asking for a lot of money because they showed up this year defensively. You're not going to be able to retain that offensive line. Obviously, your run game needs help. So you have to ask yourself, should we go for a running back or a quarterback in the first round? Even if you are going to draft a quarterback in the first round, you have a late draft pick. You're not drafting until the 20s. So I don't understand why any Steelers fan would be saying to themselves, yeah, we're better off than Big Ben, or, the Steelers are better off with Big Ben. They're just not.
Yeah, I mean, I think towards the beginning of the year, Roethlisberger was one of the more overrated quarterbacks because people were putting him in top 5, top 10, which I never believed that. But he's definitely top 15, and obviously the Steelers are not better off without him. He was huge. He was huge for that team. So I think he's become rated right. But what I'll say about that next year, especially if Big Ben retires, which I still think he will. I guess even if he doesn't, they have a lot of people to pay, a lot of free agents. They don't have too much money. I don't think they're going to be very good next year. I think I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a hot take, I guess, but I think they're going to lose some key pieces on defense, like Devin Bush. Especially if Big Ben retires and they give Mason Rudolph a shot. I don't see them being too good next year, especially with the Ravens and the Browns
Of
having
course,
really
and I
bright
think both of
futures.
those teams are definitely trending in the right direction. I don't know. It's really hard to gauge how a team is going to do next year right after they lose in the playoffs, like last night, because you have to see how they do in free agency, who they bring back, who they draft, all those things. But yeah, as of right now, if you assume that they lose a lot of those guys to free agency because they don't have a lot of money, and if Ben Roethlisberger's not the quarterback next year, I'd say 8-8, 7-9 is probably an accurate pick for this team. I think we're going to see a very 2019 like Steelers team, without Ben Roethlisberger, very banged up. I don't see this team being 12-4. Absolutely not next year, at the very least.
I agree.
All right, so next game, let's go Bills and your Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk about that game.
That was the Colts win right there. I mean, I'm not obviously the Bills are a better team, and it's cool they get to move on. But man, our game plan, our scheme was great. We held the ball out of Josh Allen's hands for a majority of the game. Our defense was okay. They came up with a few good stops. Could have been better. I blame this on Frank Reich. Phillip Rivers played a great game up until that last drive, which, I mean, you can't put too much pressure on him. But he was not a weakness to me. He has been this year, but in that game, he wasn't really a weakness to me. Our run game, Taylor was pretty good. He looked like an animal. And Nyheim Hines had like 5 carries for 70 yards. He was huge in that game. But our receivers were not very good. Pittman had a couple good catches. He also had 2 drops. Ty was a ghost the whole game, just wasn't there. And I think there was a big third down catch that he would have made in his prime, but he let it get knocked out of his hands. Zach Pascal had 2 drops, I think. He also had a good catch and then almost sold the game at the end, which obviously that was a fumble, so we got a little bit lucky there. Our tight ends came up huge. Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, Trey Burton all had some huge catches. But the reason I blame this on Frank Reich is because he's too greedy. We're down 3 points. All right, so it's first half. It's 10-7, and we got 4th and 5, 4th and 6, 4th and goal, but it was 5 or 6 yards, and we go for it. Like, say we kick the field goal later in the game. It's 27-all instead of 27-24, and the Bills stopping us there was a huge momentum turn and gave them the ball with 2 minutes to go down and score easy, which also, by the way, Kamoko Trey jumping off sides just gave them that. So at best, it should have been 13-7 at half. At worst, it should have been 13-10 if Teray doesn't jump off sides. But that was a huge momentum change that Frank Reich just let him have. I would have kicked the field goal. I don't think it was a terrible call, but he's too greedy. He has been the whole time he's been in Indy. And Rodrigo missing that field goal, a 33-yard field goal, really lost us the game there because once again, those were two missed opportunities to have a field goal and either be tied or up in that game. And Tyler Bass, the Bills kicker, with that 54-yard kick was huge for them.
Yeah. I think it's very similar to the Steelers. If Phillip Rivers is throwing the ball 46 times, you're not going to win a whole lot of football games. You're just not. And especially when you have the receivers that the Colts do. Ty is one of, if not the most inconsistent wide receiver in the NFL. We've seen him go off for 150 yards and 2 scores, and we've seen him have games like he had against the Bills just completely disappear. You're not going to be able to rely on Michael Pittman, who at best has been maybe the 8th or 9th best receiver in the NFL, rookie receiver this year. Jonathan Taylor had an okay game, 78 yards on 21 carries. I mean, that's less than 4 yards per carry. I feel like if you're giving him 21, you're giving the ball 21 times, he should be getting 100 yards in the playoffs. I don't know. I think this is honestly where the Colts met their demise. It's tough to keep up with a team like the Bills, just a high-powered offense. And honestly, they didn't really even have that fantastic of a game. Josh Allen balled out, of course, but their run game, similar to the Steelers, just could not get going at all. Josh Allen actually led the way with 54 rushing yards. The Colts had a good game. They did. They did not play. There were a lot of missed opportunities. I would say this game could have easily been 34-27 in the Colts' favor. And I just think this speaks even more to the point where, like, this team is a wide receiver and a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. I stand by that. I've been saying that all season long since week 4. I've been saying this team could literally win a Super Bowl. And it's no knock on Phillip Rivers because you proved me wrong. Phillip Rivers had a much better season than I gave him credit for. But when you have Phillip Rivers cannot win a Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers right now has the worst playoff record out of any starting active quarterback in the NFL. You just can't win. And you cannot rely on Michael Pittman and T.Y. Hilton to win you football games. You just can't. So Colts next season, I'm very optimistic for them, but the Bills just the better team.
Yeah, I think it came down to it was a great game by the Colts. I mean, won't deny that, but it just came down to the better team winning. I would also forgot to say Jonathan Taylor actually, like, there was definitely a few plays where he, like, second and third chances, like, he made some good cuts, good plays. He looked really good in the game.
Yeah.
But the Bills did a pretty good job stopping the run for the most part during that game, which is why Rivers had to pass so much. But I would also say I don't know about keeping Jonathan Taylor in on passing downs because he killed 2 drives with 2 big drops on second and long that he had plenty of green grass ahead of him. Would have been a first down, and we ended up having to throw it for like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and it didn't work out. So he really actually killed 2 drives. But I mean, it just came down to us shooting ourselves in the foot, and the better team just won. But Rivers actually was 4-0 in wild card before this week. So
it's just after this week, I think he's now 5-7. I don't know. He's also 0. I think he's also 0-4 in playoff games under 40 degrees. So that's another thing that kind of killed him. But yeah, let's jump to the last AFC game. We got the Baltimore Ravens and the Tennessee Titans. Both teams were 11-5 going into this game. What do you think?
To be honest, like, I knew it was going to be a good game. I think that was my favorite game of the weekend, either that or the Colts. Those were the 2 best games. But I was one of the few people that were extremely confident in my Ravens pick, which I hate to say because I don't like them. But I knew that they were going to win this game. I did think it was going to be way, way higher scoring. I think I had it like 41-34. So that was a little off, but I was pretty confident that the Ravens were going to win this game. I didn't see them going 0-3 against them. I didn't see Lamar going 0-3 in the playoffs, even though I'm not a ginormous Lamar guy. I think that 0-2 thing was just kind of a meme. Plenty of people start out like that. And then, Dobbins looked like a beast. It was really entertaining with the rivalry going on there.
Of course.
Yeah. I was really hoping to see a fight there.
Definitely a big rivalry in the making. I will definitely say that. Lamar played well. Lamar played a very good game. He was an efficient passer. He did throw a pick. But after that pick, he settled in the first quarter. He played well. He was a phenomenal runner, breaking away. I think that was like a 40-yard touchdown. Marquise Brown went over 100 yards. He was kind of a surprise. 7 catches for 109. But on the other end, I think just the storyline for this game, Derrick Henry just could not get it going. 18 carries for 40 yards. He was just a non-factor in this game. And it was very clear, very evident throughout the game. Tennessee was trying to get him into it. Like they were trying their absolute hardest to get Derrick Henry going, and they just couldn't. The Ravens just had an answer for him every single carry. I think his longest carry was like 7 yards on the day. He just, like I said, could not get anything going. And I will say it definitely silenced me because I was a big believer in Ryan Tannehill, and I kept saying to myself, or saying to others too, Ryan Tannehill can win a game if Derrick Henry doesn't play well. I was a big believer in that. I thought this team ran through, obviously, Derrick Henry, but I thought that Ryan Tannehill was a bigger contributor and factor when it comes to the 11-5 record rather than Derrick Henry's rushing ability. And honestly, I know it's only one game, but I was proven wrong. Ryan Tannehill, 18 for 26, 165 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 pick. He just was not good. I mean, he made a lot of really just bad decisions. He threw to I remember one play that stuck out like a sore thumb to me, throwing it to Khalif Raymond on an in route on a slot instead of hitting his wide open man in single coverage, AJ Brown down the field, which would have completely changed the dynamic of the game. But I don't know. It is definitely going to raise some question marks about Ryan Tannehill as a starter without Derrick Henry being good. Of course, Ryan Tannehill's going to be a starter. I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning whether Ryan Tannehill is a top 10 quarterback right now.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the Tannehill center. I mean, I think people are definitely going to overreact to this game. It's one game. Like last year, obviously Derrick Henry was a beast, but I mean Tannehill went 2-0 in the playoffs and Lamar went 0-1, and now just because Lamar beat him, it's just recency stuff. Like
Of
just
course,
off the
but
top of
Ryan
my head.
Tannehill threw for like a combined 250 yards.
Oh yeah, he had a bad game, no denying that. But off the top of my head, when they said they earlier in the year they beat the Bills 42-16. Derrick Henry had like 20 carries for like 60 yards, and Tannehill had like 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And they won 42-16 with Henry doing nothing. And they beat the Bears earlier in the year, back when they were like good, like 5-1 or 5-2, or at least people thought they were good.
Yeah.
They beat the Bears, and Henry had like 22 for 58 or something. I mean, I don't know. Tannehill can win on his own. He's still underrated in my eyes and still definitely top 10.
Yeah, look, I probably am overreacting to an extent, and you can definitely make the argument for him being a top 10 quarterback. And I don't know. I guess I'd have to like manually put 10 quarterbacks over him, and I'm not quite sure I could do it. But I will say, having Derrick Henry have this type of game, it does make me question whether this team runs through Tannehill or whether it runs through Henry.
I mean, people forget that Derrick Henry was never good until Ryan Tannehill came in. They were 2-5 with Mariota, and then Tannehill comes in and they go like 7-2. I probably got that
Very good
wrong,
point.
but basically they were not good with Mariota.
I think they
even
they're
though
1-3
Henry was
with
on the team.
Mariota. I think.
Hmm?
I think they were 1-3 with Mariota, and then had the bye, and then went on that tear with Tannehill.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just Henry makes Tannehill better, obviously, because but people way overdo that. Tannehill makes Henry a lot better too.
Yeah.
My opinion.
Yeah, look, I think that offense would not be the same if either of them weren't there, for sure. But we're now going to jump to the NFC. Let's see, what are we going to do first? Let's do Saints and Bears. We'll get the boring one out of the way first.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be a little closer than it was.
Yeah,
I did expect it to be low scoring like that. I think my final prediction was like 20-17. I picked the Bears earlier in the week because everyone was saying they have no chance, and I ended up towards the end of the week when I made a little bracket pool with my buddies. I ended up going with the Saints, but I don't know. I thought it was going to be a 1-possession game, really close, 21-9. It was really more like 21-3. Last second play. I don't know. I think Trubisky's done there. I think the
really?
Bears. I do.
You think they're moving on?
I don't see why they would not, because I mean this has been an ongoing thing, just being frustrated with Trubisky and Nagy.
Yeah.
I don't if they bring the duo of Nagy and Trubisky back, then I don't. I mean that's just a joke to me. Like why?
I definitely think one of them's gone. I think that it's very unlikely that both of them return next year. And I made a video. I said Mitch. This is what Mitch Trubisky is. Mitch Trubisky is going to be an early round exit carried by a good defense for his entire career. Or he's going to be a high end backup. I just don't think Mitch Trubisky is a winner. And I know that it's a team stat. I understand wins a team stat. I'm just saying I don't think Mitch Trubisky can go out there and win you a football game. We've seen multiple times throughout the playoffs. Just look at last year. Patrick Mahomes down by 24 to the Texans, down by 10 to the Titans. He carried them back. You can say, oh, it was the Chiefs, Tyreek. No. Patrick Mahomes brought that team back. I don't think Mitch Trubisky, and there aren't a whole lot of quarterbacks that can do it. I just don't think Mitch Trubisky can do it all because with a team that was struggling as much as they were, and the defense gave them the ability to come back with timely turnovers for the Bears, Trubisky couldn't turn them into points. And that's why I just don't think Mitch Trubisky can be a beyond a wild card starter in the NFL.
Yeah, I think Trubisky coming back just depends on kind of what they do at the quarterback spot. Like if they get Watson, they don't need Trubisky, or maybe they get like they draft a guy and keep Trubisky. I don't know. It's just going to depend on what they do with that to me.
Yeah.
But I will say I think Allen Robinson's gone. There's
Oh
no
yeah.
way he's going to stay there unless they were to get Watson or somebody or Stafford. He is going to look for somewhere that wins and somewhere that finally has a good quarterback for him.
Yeah, I think there's this thing going around the NFL. It's like, oh, who can bring out the biggest paycheck? The Bears can't. They have so much money tied to bad players and players that just don't earn their contracts. They can't pay Allen Robinson even if they wanted to. So I think for sure I agree. I think Allen Robinson's definitely gone. Bring him to New England. Love to do that. Run it with him and whatever quarterback they bring in because there's no way they bring Newton back. Pretty sure they already ported Newton's not coming back next year. But yeah, we'll have to see. I hope just for his sake that he has a new home because going from Blake Bortles to Mitch Trubisky to Nick Foles back to Mitch Trubisky, must suck.
Yeah. But I think the Saints are probably the most balanced team in the league. Their defense is
Yep.
top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
One of the best in the playoffs, to me. And the offense, I think, still somewhat shaky. Not as good as it should be, but it's still a fine working offense, not a weakness at all. That was one of the first times we've seen a healthy Breeze, Thomas, and Kamara in forever. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I still think
But
they're dangerous.
agreed. But like you have to remember, Chicago is probably going to be the toughest defense they face in the playoffs. I just don't see them facing a tougher defense. I mean, maybe the Bucks, if you want to argue them, but you got the Packers who have a sucky defense, and then you have the Saints, not the Saints, sorry, and then you have the Rams. I just don't see them advancing past the Saints. So if that's the case, then you got the Saints and the Bucks, and sorry. I keep messing the Saints. You got the Packers and the Bucks, and I just don't see either of those teams having a better defense than the Bears do. But crazier things have happened. But second game, just mentioned them. We got the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. LA took the dub 30-20. What are your thoughts? Big upset.
I don't know why I overlooked the Rams because
Yeah.
I think I saw this list where it's like ranking the most well coached teams in the playoffs, and the Rams were like lower, and I was like, dude, the Rams could be like the one of the best coached teams in the playoffs, debatably the best. So I don't know why I just overlooked them. I guess it was just because their last stretch, I thought it was going to be either Wolford or
Yeah.
Goff with a broken thumb, who I thought would be way worse than he was. He was pretty good in that game. And I mean the Seahawks have been hot. They're 12-4.
Yeah.
I mean they're on a hot streak. And they just beat the Rams before that. And obviously the Rams lost to the Jets. I didn't like what I'd see from the Rams lately, but obviously like before the past 5 weeks, I used to be really big on them, hyping them up, and I don't know why I just forgot about how good their defense was. I knew it was going to be. I thought it was going to be lower scoring. I had it like 20-17, 23-20, something like that. I didn't think there was going to be more point. I'm really surprised the Seahawks defense played so bad. I made the mistake of believing in them, and that's why I picked the Seahawks because they're hot and their defense had been really good lately. So Big mistake believing in them. But the Rams, I've been saying all year, have the best defense, and as long as their offense doesn't poop their pants, then they're a dangerous team. Yeah, so I mean that was a surprise to me, but I guess the more I think about it, it makes sense.
Yeah, I I actually said in my other podcast, I said the coming days going into that game, like when I first saw, the bracket was set, Seattle versus Rams, oh, Seattle in a heartbeat. And then like the coming days, I'm like, each day I became more like, okay, maybe the Rams, maybe the Rams. And then like the day I made my bracket, I'm like Seahawks, and the day from like Rams. So I was a little too late to the Rams party, but I mean, again, like you said, how could we sleep on this team? I mean, they have, in my opinion, I think your opinion too, the number one defense in the NFL. And if Jared Goff, if I knew that Jared Goff would have played as efficiently as he did, I would have definitely picked the Rams. There was just so much uncertainty at quarterback that I feel like I had to pick the Seahawks just because of that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Cam Akers balled out 28 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown. The pass game, it wasn't great, but they didn't need it to be great. There are a lot of, clutch turnovers that the defense, or takeaways that the Rams defense had, setting up. First of all, they had the pick six and then setting up short fields for Goff and company to be able to just march down and, put up even more points. But I will say, as a fan of Russell Wilson, can we please get him an offensive line? I'm so sick of Russell Wilson having to scramble out of the pocket because PFF put out their offensive rankings, which I thought was hilarious. It was just a downright joke putting the Seattle at 14 because any person who's watched a quarter or honestly a possession of Seattle football knows that Russell Wilson, one out of every two or three dropbacks, will have to scramble out of the pocket. Like, it's honestly embarrassing at this point how little money they're putting into that offensive line. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You have a franchise generational talent in Russell Wilson. And if you give him an offensive line like he had in 2013, I know he had a great defense, but if you give him an offensive line like he had in 2013, he can carry them to the Super Bowl. I'm a firm believer in that if you give him a top 7 offensive line, Russell Wilson and the Seattle team can go to the Super Bowl. Easily believe that. And honestly, 11 for 27, that is not an accurate depiction of how he threw the ball. 11 completions, that's because of how bad their offensive line was. He just couldn't set his feet. He was under pressure the entire time. Receivers couldn't get open. That's just honestly, that's just, to me, that's what this game was about. It wasn't about how bad of a game did Russell Wilson have. No, it's about how bad the offensive line played and how the defense just couldn't keep up with this Rams offense.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, I don't know why they don't prioritize the O line more, but because if you think about the best three O lines, you got the Packers and they're 13-3 as the 1 seed. You got the Colts, who would be nowhere as nearly as good as they are without that O line.
Yep.
And the Browns, who just killed the Steelers last night because of that offensive line, allowing 0 sacks and barely any pressures last night. It was beautiful.
Putting the Saints at 4, they went 12-4, 13-3, whatever they went, and they're making a Super Bowl push. And the Bucs at 5, are making a Super Bowl push right now. Every single team that has a good offensive line, not everyone, but a lot of the teams that have a good offensive line are in the playoffs. Honestly, look at every single one. The only team in the playoffs that doesn't have a good offensive line is Seattle. That's really it. I mean, like Kansas City does, Browns, Bills, Ravens, they all do. Bucs, New Orleans, Packers, Rams, they all do. The teams that lost, but even the Washington football team has a good one. Tennessee has a very good run offensive line, solid all around. The Bears don't have a great one. They lost. Steelers were facing injuries towards the end of the season. They lost. Like every single good offensive line. Every single team in the playoffs has a good offensive line, and the teams that don't, they lost in the first round. That's the formula for winning.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, this is Russell Wilson's prime right now, being kind of wasted in Seattle right now. And I've always thought that Pete Carroll's kind of an overrated coach. I don't think he's a top 10 coach. I don't think he should be fired. I just think something needs to be changed. I left him out of my top 10, and that it showed yesterday why I did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in him too much.
I don't know. I guess you have to put 10 coaches higher. That's another one of those things with, like, the quarterback Ryan Tannehill.
I could probably put 12 coaches higher.
Really? Okay. All right. That's a hot take for sure. But let's jump to the last NFC reaction game. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. What are your thoughts?
Obviously, Heineke. What a dog! Looks like a dog, man. Goat.
Yeah, Heineke
Um,
is the GOAT.
yeah, but I mean, I knew that the Washington football team would give them a little bit of run. I thought they'd pull away a little more than they did. It was a one possession game, which is pretty crazy. But obviously, I'm sick of they barely beat a 7-9 team. It's the playoffs. Like, relax. They played
Yep.
great. I mean, really the only Tom Brady played great. The secondary was a little. That defense needs to pick it up if they want to beat the Saints next week.
Yeah.
But the Chris Godwin was really the only one that just played bad on the Bucks, in my opinion.
Yeah. Taylor Heineke, he's he's the GOAT. But one thing I do want to highlight, the Bucks run game was really good. Leonard Fournette, 93 yards on 19 carries for almost 5 yards a carry. Keyshawn Vaughn got involved. Antonio Brown had a nice jet play. Like they had 142 combined rushing yards on the team. They look good. Receiving, this looked like the Saints versus the Bucks, but the Bucks were on the end of just spreading the wealth to everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players had receptions on this team, and 4 of them went over 40. 5 of them went over 40 receiving yards. Cameron Brate was the number 2 receiver on this team. I mean, you think to yourself, Antonio Brown only had 50 yards, and we kept Chris Godwin to only 80 yards. Well, you know what? Cameron Brate is going to get 80 yards too. This is why I picked them to win the Super Bowl. They just have so much talent on this team that it's hard to deny, and you can't stop all of them. You just can't. But I do agree with you completely. They got to step it up on the secondary. The secondary had an abysmal day. Cam Sims went over 100 yards. No knock on him, but you're not going to win football games if football players like Cam Sims are going over 100 yards. McLaurin had a nice 6 for 75. Yeah, the secondary definitely needs to step it up. Brady had a great game, though. The run game was obviously cooking. We'll get into it in a second, but I think Tampa Bay is going to roll.
All right, I agree.
All right, so first prediction. We'll go back to the AFC just to keep things balanced. We got the number 6 seed Cleveland Browns at the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs. Give me your thoughts.
I want you to start this one.
All right. All right. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to give some, illustrious speech beforehand saying, oh, the Browns have a shot. No, Chiefs are going to roll. Off rest, at home, I got the Chiefs. Like, pretty self-explanatory. If the Steelers won, honestly, I think that would be a much, much, much closer game. But there just gets to a point where talent wins. And I think the Chiefs are the much more talented and explosive team than the Browns are. The run game, I think, will give the Chiefs fits. I definitely think so, but I don't think they're going to be able to rely on the run game if the Chiefs go up like 14-3 in like the second or third quarter. Like, it's just going to get to a point where the Browns are going to have to ask Baker Mayfield to go out there and win them a football game. I just don't think they can. I just don't think Baker Mayfield is capable of going out and winning a game if they're down. And I can almost guarantee it, the Browns are going to be down at some point during Sunday's game versus the Chiefs. So I got the Chiefs in this one. I'm going to say my score prediction is going to be, I'm going to say 30-24. I'll take the Chiefs.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's going to be closer than people expect. I still don't see the Browns pulling it off, but we've seen Kansas City keep a lot of games close this year. Patrick Mahomes and some other starters haven't played since week 16. That's a 2-week break, a little over 2 weeks, I guess, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to come out and be rusty and bad. I don't know. I just think that's something. I think teams that sit out week 17 and our starting quarterbacks I saw since sitting out week 17 and having a bye week are like 1-4 doing that. I'm not saying the Chiefs are going to lose, but I think it's going to be close. I think the Browns are rolling right now. They're going to get Denzel Ward back. I think Batonio should be back. I don't know what Conklin's injury was, but he came back and was on the sideline. I assume he's going to be back. Stefanski's coming back, and I love taking well-coached teams, which is why I'm big on the Rams. So I think Stefanski's not going to sit over and get rolled over. I think he's going to put up a great fight. But like you said, I think it should come down to the talent. I have it being really close. I think the Chiefs defense could struggle against the Browns offense. I think it'll be high scoring. I don't see the Browns defense, especially their secondary, playing nearly as well as they did against the Steelers at all. I think Mahomes will light them up. But I have Chiefs 34, Browns 31.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. You brought some really good points. They are getting Denzel Ward back, but Tonio should be back. And if Stefanski's calling the plays, um, you assume they will be a better team. But I mean, you got to admit, don't you think the Browns kind of lucked out in a few plays yesterday? A few tip balls that went their way. Obviously, the first play of the game. I mean, again, it's very hypothetical. It's very like, oh, obviously you can't just take those things out. But if you take those things out, I mean, I don't know if the Browns win that game because that's a huge momentum shift between those two things. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying, but that whole line was insane against the best defensive line in the league, the best front seven, debatably, in the league, and they allowed no hits, no sacks. There was like 4 pressures. Like Baker was not touched,
Yeah.
and obviously the Chiefs don't have as good of a defense as the Steelers are. So I think that offense is going to roll because they didn't roll as much towards the end, but when they lost Conklin, like they had a ton of injuries on that offensive line, a ton of people missing, and they were still rolling. So I think that Browns offense, especially with Stefanski, they didn't even practice. They practiced like once. So I think to come out, even though they had a couple tipped up picks, good field position, they still put up 48.
Of course.
Or the offense, I guess, put up 41. So I mean, I think that offense is going to be great. I think it's going to be the defense that loses it.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely fair. I don't think the Chiefs defense is all that, so that's definitely fair. All right, so we're gonna go to the other AFC game. We got the 2-seeded Buffalo Bills versus the 5-seeded Baltimore Ravens. What are your thoughts?
This was definitely a really hard game to pick. I think it should be the best game of the weekend, possibly. Going to Buffalo. It's Josh Allen versus Lamar, 2 highly debated quarterbacks. I really could see either way here. You could go. They're probably the 2 hottest teams in the league right now. The Bills are probably the hottest team. The Ravens are probably the second.
You cannot leave my Bucks out of that conversation.
Okay, top 3. Okay. Yeah, I mean, but they're all really hot. The Bills did pretty well against the Colts run defense. I think it's going to be tough to keep. Obviously, the Ravens probably have a top 3 rushing attack. Colts are probably top 10. So obviously this is different. Lamar Jackson just torched the Tennessee defense in the run game. So I mean, I think the Bills offense is going to have to be electric to win this game. I think they're going to have to get up big. They're just going to have to get up by double digits and make Lamar pass. I will say that yes, the Ravens got down 10-0 last game, and they ended up coming back and winning, I think. But that was the first time in the last 2 or 3 years that they've come back from a 10-point deficit. And I'm not trying to hate on Lamar. I'm just saying it's different. I am not saying he's a bad passer, but he's still not better than an average
Still
passer,
learning.
in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad passer, but I think this narrative of, oh, he's overhated. Yes, he's overhated. But then they continue to go, yeah, he's a great passer. No, he's not. Don't kid yourself. He's not a great passer. He's an okay passer.
He's not, but I will say, if you compare him and Kyler Murray, if you give Lamar Jackson DeAndre Hopkins, he puts up very similar numbers to Kyler Murray passing the ball. I stand by that. I absolutely do. Come on. Are you going to tell me that Marquise Brown is a guy you can pass the ball to effectively? Come on. You're kidding yourself if you think that Marquise Brown and a tight end who's not even top 2 in the NFL is good enough to throw the ball to. It's just not true. But yeah, look, if you're one of those people who loves to look at matchups and see which team has a better matchup, I see the Ravens have the better matchup. Buffalo has I think it's the 12th worst rushing defense in the NFL. And for a team that primarily throws the ball, being Buffalo, Baltimore has the 4th best pass defense in the NFL. So it's a good matchup for the Ravens. Right now, the Ravens are predicted to win 51% to 48%. I don't see that happening. I think the Bills will roll against the Ravens. Like you said, I think they are the hottest team in the NFL. So yeah, I got the Bills winning this thing. I think Josh Allen's arm is just too much for this Ravens team. But yeah, I don't know. You brought up another great point about Lamar Jackson and how the Ravens haven't come back in two plus years, down by 10 points, or they've only come back once. And yeah, it's not a fluke. Last game when the Ravens came back, it was not a fluke. But that's not, you cannot expect the Ravens to do that every day. The Ravens are not just going to come back from 10 points every day, because they did have a lot of things go their way in that game. So yeah, I got the Bills winning this one. I'm going to say my score prediction. It's not going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be in the 20s. I've got them winning 28 to like 23.
I also, yeah, the Ravens defense obviously shut down Derrick Henry. Great game plan. But they did still have to worry about a passing game, a great Tannehill to A.J. Brown duo, which, by the way, they did not do a very good job with. I think Humphrey had a bad game. A.J. Brown kind of owned Humphrey, which I think is rare for Humphrey to get owned like that. But I think when you go over to this Bills game, we all know they ran the ball like 10 times last week. They don't have a good run game. It's not quite as bad as the Steelers, but I know it's not a top 20 run game in the league. So I think the Ravens really don't even have to worry about a run game. They can put all their effort into game planning and stopping Josh Allen. And I think obviously it's stopping a pass game and stopping a run game is different, but they worked all week to stop that run game. I think they could try to do the same. You got to keep Josh Allen in the pocket just the same way you got to keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket. That's what beat the Colts, is just letting Josh Allen scramble and throw those toe tappers to Gabriel Davis on that one drive. That's what screwed the Colts. So I think the Ravens can do that. I think they can keep him in the pocket. I still think the Bills should be the favorite here. I think the Buffalo weather could favor the Bills because it's home, or it could favor the Ravens because they're run heavy. I'm going to go Ravens 31-30.
Ravens over Bills, really? Okay. I see it. I definitely see it. I can definitely see the Ravens winning this game. I am a big believer in momentum right now. And I feel like, yes, have the Ravens won 6 straight games? Yes. But did the Ravens really face anybody that was all that great?
Cleveland and the Titans. But, I think I want the Bills to win because I don't like the Ravens. And I also think that they have a better chance of winning. But we're not going to go through this weekend without an upset. And the Ravens are perfectly capable. I think the Bills are definitely more likely to win. But, you got to throw it in there. You got to throw the Ravens in there. I think
I like it.
Maybe it comes down to who has the ball last. And it comes down to a Justin Tucker field goal, which obviously we know he can make. And I'm definitely not trying to harp on the Bills because they've lost 3 games. 2 of them were rescheduled to like Tuesday night. And one of them was to the defending champion Chiefs. Those are their only 3 losses. And it was and
that was a much different Bills team than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
To the Chiefs.
I'm no Josh Allen hater. I think you could put him at top 3 or 4 in the league. But and obviously after watching him last game, to me, he looked like Patrick Mahomes, just scrambling, just chucking it wherever the hell he wanted to. He's a great quarterback. I don't know. I'm just feeling the Ravens here.
All right, what? I gotta respect it for sure. So those are the AFC matchups. Now we're gonna jump to the NFC to finish off the pod. We're gonna start off with the 6-seeded Rams versus the 1-seeded Packers. What are your thoughts?
This was another hard game to me. It was actually a hard game. I'm not counting out the Rams here. Like I said, very well coached teams are huge. Obviously, the Packers are too. But when I'm looking at this matchup, I'm looking at the Packers being probably the most hyped up team in the league right now. We got all this Lambeau talk, all this 0% chance for anyone else to come out of the NFC. I think the Packers are being a little bit too overhyped right now. I'm not denying they're a great team. They have the best quarterback, wide receiver, running back duo in the league, even just a better quarterback, wide receiver duo in the league. Great O-line. They do not
even
have
the best
Bakhtiari.
Quarterback and wide receiver, respectively, in the league.
Yeah. Bakhtiari is going to be a big miss, especially going up against the Rams defense. Man. Here's what I think. The Rams defense matching up against Rodgers. When I'm looking at the Packers regular season, I know they can't help not playing too many good teams, but they played, I think the best two teams they played were the Buccaneers. The best four teams, the Buccaneers, the very injured Saints. So obviously that's a good win, but they were injured. That was like week 2 or 3, completely different team now. But that was probably their better win of the year. The Titans, who we know are very inconsistent, have a terrible defense, and that's why the Packers put up 40 on them. So I mean, those are both two good wins. But you played the Bucs, who was probably the best team you've played all year, and they torched you. You played the Colts, who I don't know, man. The Colts beat you um, because they have a good defense, and I think that this Rams defense, this very well coached Rams defense, has a chance to come in and hold Rodgers to a low score. And I think the Packers or the Packers run defense makes me nervous, makes me very nervous. And you get Cam Akers to have another game like that, he could torch that Packers defense up. I still think it's going to be low scoring. I'm not saying the Packers have no shot at winning this. I'm just saying don't count out the Rams. Um, and I might just be hyping them up because of recency bias. Who knows?
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm going Rams 24-21. Why not?
Wow. Okay. So two pretty big upsets. I like to hear it though. Everybody always says the Titans are the most inconsistent team in the NFL. And I'm not even going to say they aren't. But nobody ever says that the Rams are inconsistent because they absolutely are. They've lost to the Dolphins this year, lost to the Niners twice. They've had. I'm not saying they lost to the Jets. I'm not saying the Dolphins are a bad team, but it's still a questionable loss when you look at this team that advanced past the Seahawks. That's pretty much what I'm trying to prove. If this game wasn't, you say, oh, you want all Lambeau. If it wasn't in Lambeau and it wasn't off a bye, I'd pick the Rams. Straight up, I'd pick the Rams. But because this game is in Lambeau and because they are coming off a bye, and look, byes in the NFL, they don't come enough. Like, that is such a big deal if a team is coming off a bye. So, you don't know what Rams team you're going to get. Are you going to get the team that laid up 9 points to the Seahawks and lost to the Jets? Or are you going to get the team that beat the Seahawks, beat the Buccaneers? Like, which team are you going to get? So right now, just because of that uncertainty, I'm going to go with the Packers. Again, I agree with you. Very low scoring game. I do think matchup wise, this does favor the Rams. I mean, look, you assume Jalen Ramsey is going to try to lock down Devontae Adams with no Bakhtiari, Aaron Donald's and Michael Brockers, and Leonard Floyd doesn't get enough credit at all. Leonard Floyd and them are going to get heavy field day against the Packers O-line. And look, it's a run-heavy team against a bad run defense. It's a great matchup for the Rams. I just think at the end of the day, I favor the team at home off a bye with the best quarterback and wide receiver in the NFL. So I'm going to take the Packers in this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Packers in this one. I'm going to say 27. It's going to be close. I think 27-24 Packers are winning this.
Obviously, we all know how inconsistent the Rams are, but my whole thing is basing it off of coming off a hot game. Maybe if they come out and play bad, they have no chance, but I'm banking on them playing good. And like you said, I mean, Sean McVay has proven he knows what he's doing in the playoffs. He's gone to the Super Bowl with once again, very average Jared Goff, and a great defense. And yes, he had Todd Gurley at the time, had a great run game, but they got a great run game right now. And like you said, Packers, that's a great matchup. A very hot Cam Akers and very good run game overall versus one of the worst run defenses in the playoffs for sure.
Of course. And I think if Sean McVay can get the ball out of Jared Goff's hands, what I mean is if he can get it to jet sweeps to Robert Woods, short screen plays to Cooper Kupp, runs to Cam Akers, just like take the pressure off of Jared Goff, then I think the Rams absolutely have a chance. Because if I'm being honest, I'm not trying to be a Jared Goff hater or anything, but the biggest liability on this Rams team is Jared Goff. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They have the best defense in the league, one of the best offensive lines, a fantastic wide receiver duo, a great up-and-coming running back committee. Jared Goff's the liability there. So if you can take the pressure off of him and get the ball out of his hands, the Rams definitely have a shot against the Packers. And that's why I'm saying this is going to be a much closer game than people are giving credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was talking about matchups earlier with based off who they've played all year, I'm really excited to see Davante Adams versus Jalen
Oh,
Ramsey
yeah.
because he has not faced a corner like that this year. Definitely the hardest, one of the best DBs out there, best in my opinion, and that's going to be a great matchup. And an O line without David Bakhtiari playing probably the best D line they've played all year, maybe the Bucks. But we saw what happened with the Bucks. It's going to be tough for that O line with no Bakhtiari. Like I said, just a great matchup for the Rams. Still a long shot that they pull it off, but it's very possible. So
Of course. You know what? I'm not taking the Rams, but I'm very close to doing it because if we see this Rams team that we know they're capable of, yeah, I'll take the Rams. But it's just because of the uncertainty in Jared Goff liability that I'm taking the Packers. So last game of the podcast, we're coming up on an hour. Hope you guys are enjoying listening to the Red Zone Room. We got the 5-seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the 2-seeded New Orleans Saints. What are your thoughts?
it's another hard game to pick. I think you could really go either way. But I think the Saints defense is better. The Bucks offense is probably better. But we saw what happened earlier in the year. I think this is what makes it hard to me is because it's always hard to pick somebody to beat a team 3 times in a row in the same year. But at the same time, they handled them both times. So what makes you think that they're not going to handle them again or at least win? So for me, it's tough to pick against the Saints. And when you go through I know the Bucks are very hot right now, but they have shown signs of being able to play very inconsistent. I'm not saying they will this game, but you never know if you're going to get the bad form of the Bucks. And the Saints, man, their defense is looking very good. Not that the Bears had a great offense, but held them to 3 points for pretty much the whole game. And they got a healthy Breeze, Thomas, Kamara, which we have not seen too much of this year. I just think they're definitely more well coached than the Buccaneers. Sean Payton's underrated, but it's another thing is it's just I don't see the Saints just choking again because obviously we know they choke every year. I think it's time for them to make a legit run. I'm gonna go Saints 27, Bucks 24.
So you actually brought up two very good points earlier. You said how there's no way the Ravens lose again because the Tennessee Titans beat them twice. You just said it again. That's my main point. Not my main, but it's one of my main points. Tom Brady is not going to lose 3 times in a year. It's just not happening. It won't happen. So for that reason and for a few others, people always bring up, like you said, it is a very fair point. The Saints handled the Bucs earlier. Well, week 1, I do not count. Week 1, we saw Tom Brady in a new uniform for the first time in 20 years, longer than you and I have been alive for. So when that happens, and when you have to learn an entire playbook with no OTAs and no in a limited training camp, you're not going to win week 1. And especially when you're facing the Saints team who didn't change it all over the offseason, you're not going to win week 1. So I excuse them for that. For the game they lost 38-3, a little bit more inexcusable, but you have to remember, Leonard Fournette was out, Chris Godwin was out, no Antonio Brown, no Levante David. When you account for those guys being back again, maybe this team changes up again. And again, that was one of the only games Michael Thomas was actually healthy for. I think he had, I forget the yardages he had in that game, but still, again, for the point that Tom Brady in the playoffs and for the point that Tom Brady doesn't lose 3 times in a row to the same team, it's just not going to happen. So if you guys have followed me for very long, you guys know I picked the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl, and for them to win the Super Bowl, they got to beat the Saints. So I'm taking the Bucs in this one. I think it will be a pretty high-scoring game because whenever I say it's going to be a low-scoring game with good defenses, it never happens. So I think it'll be a high-scoring one. I've got the Bucs in this one, 34-31. It's going to be a close one. Absolutely it will be. But it just gets to a point where I think this pass rush is going to get to Drew Brees. I really think it will. Buccaneers easily, far and away, not even close, have the best linebacker core in the NFL. And I think that it will get to Drew Brees. Because they have such a good linebacker core, I think that they will find an answer for Alvin Kamara, who has been a player who, it's tough to find an answer for him, but I think the Bears did it last week. Again, good linebacker core, and the Bucs are the good linebacker core. If they can just find an answer for Michael Thomas, they can just do that, and you can take away Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Again, much easier said than done. But if you can take away Alvin Kamara, you can take away the run game, and you can take away Michael Thomas, and you force Drew Brees to go out and win that game. From what we've seen from Drew Brees this year, I don't think he's capable of doing that. So I'm taking the Bucs in this one. And again, you said it earlier. You got to spice things up a bit. There's got to be at least one upset. So I haven't picked any upsets yet. This is my upset.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the fact that the Saints have beat them twice. That was not a reason why I'm picking them. It was I was saying that's making it tougher for me to decide because, like I said, I think there is a difference between like winning 2 close games against somebody and handling them twice. It's the Bucs. The Bucs are probably playing better football right now. They have a way better quarterback, a way better receiving core, way better plenty of stuff. But it's tough for me to trust the inconsistency, especially against the Saints. I'm not saying they can't win. I think they have a perfectly fine chance of winning. I would put more trust in the Saints for me, especially in the Superdome. I just gotta go Saints, man. I don't know. And I already had 2 crazy upsets. So.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. But you got anything more to say?
No, sir.
No, sir. All right. Well, for all of you that stayed till the end, thank you so much for stopping by. All these socials will be plugged down below. My name is The Tailgate. Join with me as 440 Sports. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the Red Zone Room. We're going to be pumping these things out weekly, and we'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.